we're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Jennings Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Here from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Thanks for tuning into the show as we got lots to cover here on the program today, getting closer to another week of the National Football League, which, of course, begins tomorrow. Some great college football games coming up this weekend as well. We will preview some of the big games, including Alabama and Tennessee. Also, Michael DeCourcy joins us from Sporting News with the latest in the National Football League. Matthew Waters with us from Legal Sports Report. We also have Simon Applebaum in the house, and the podcast tomorrow will be televised, telling us the very latest on streaming rights in all sports. So stick around with us for the entirety of the show. We'll begin with Major League Baseball and the game last night in the American League Championship Series. Another good start for the New York Yankees, and they end up closing it out. A 2-0 lead in the best-of-7 series in the ALCS. Final score 6-3 yesterday. Aaron Judge showed up late in this game, finally in the postseason, and ended up hitting a home run. And so the Yankees are in a great position as they head back to Cleveland, needing 2 wins in the next 5 games to advance to the World Series. Some base running issues, of course, happened a little bit with the Yankees there. Maybe the score could have been a little bit different, but in the end, it didn't matter as Judge went deep and the Yankees extended their lead. They end up winning this one by a final of 6-3. Cleveland's pitching, by the way, has been very subpar, at least at the start of these games, but Aaron Boone focused on the little things after the game, including some of the base running issues.
I mean, certainly, like right now, always feels good to get wins in a series and in a playoffs. Obviously, knowing we have a day off tomorrow, we'll travel tomorrow, so we'll enjoy this tonight. But it's just you got to keep moving. We need 2 more here, but we can't get ahead of ourselves. We just talked about it's 1 game at a time, and excited to hand Clark the ball in Game 3 and hopefully try and get another one. It's about getting wins. We're in the postseason. Those things are going to happen. We're going for a double steal. If he gets thrown out at third, you don't say anything, but he got picked off doing it. So it's going to happen. We're not going to not be aggressive in certain situations. We'll try and guard against it as best we can. And then Riz just had a funky read on what he thought kind of ended up going to the backstop. So, I feel overall we're playing pretty well.
On the flip side, the Guardians are up against it just like they were in their series with the Detroit Tigers. They were able to come back and win that series. But obviously going into Game 3, it's a must-win situation for them, and manager Stephen Vogt says it's still one game at a time.
Be us. Keep doing what we're doing. We had traffic all night tonight. We do what we do. We get on base. We make things happen. We just didn't get a big hit with runners in scoring position tonight. We're one swing of the bat away from taking the lead in that game. We're one swing of the bat from being right back in it. That's who we are. We don't quit. We just need to keep being us. We've lost 2 games. That's what's true. We have an opportunity to go at home, play in front of our fans, and this is who this baseball team is. We don't quit. We keep fighting. We did it again tonight, and I'm excited to get home to Cleveland and play in front of our fans.
And Game 3 will be tomorrow night. Meanwhile, the Mets and Dodgers continue their series at Citi Field tonight. Right now, Dodgers are minus 112 on the money line. Should be a fun game tonight, I would think. Playoff baseball back at Citi Field. Total 7.5 for Game 3 later this evening. Now, there's another team in Major League Baseball that looks like they're going to have bigger issues than they thought about a week ago, with Hurricane Milton sweeping through the Tampa, St. Petersburg area and essentially destroying the roof on Tropicana Field. It appears, as the Tampa Bay Times is reporting, that March 27th is not a realistic date to have the Rays play in Tropicana Field. So at the very start of next season, at the very least, the Rays are going to have a different ballpark to play their home games. There's some speculation going on that they could play in one of the spring training facilities in Florida, in either Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, one of those areas. But again, none of this confirmed, although it does appear the Rays are looking for a new home for at least a portion of the season next year. Speaking of new homes, a new home for Amari Cooper, wide receiver now of the Buffalo Bills. The well-traveled receiver now heads to a place where he can get a quarterback that can clearly throw to him in Buffalo. Cleveland's having a brutal season, of course, off to a terrible start. And with nothing looking up, Cooper now heads to Buffalo and will play alongside Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, some of the other offensive weapons that Josh Allen has. Tom Brady has officially purchased a minority stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. Somewhere between 5 and 10% is the reported numbers. It will affect some of his broadcasting. He cannot broadcast Las Vegas Raiders games, which is pretty interesting. The Steelers are still deciding what to do at starting quarterback this week. Not an open and shut case, apparently. After proving his health, Mike Tomlin said that right now, Russell Wilson is knocking some of the rust off. Meanwhile, the rust has not been on Justin Fields as he continues to win games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's Tomlin talking about making a decision ahead of the week.
At the quarterback position, like I said last week, we were scheduled for Russ to work in totality. He did that. Over the course of the week, I got comfortable with his ability to display his health. Now it's about, knocking the rust off. He did some of that last week. He is in consideration this week. We'll see where that leads us, man. Both guys at the quarterback position are scheduled to work tomorrow, and we'll just walk it day by day, all geared toward putting ourselves in best position to win the football game.
The Super Bowl is heading back to Atlanta for the first time since 2019 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. The time before that, by the way, there was an ice storm. I was there. It was no fun whatsoever. It was very cold in Atlanta that week. All right, Cam Akers gets traded again, running back. All right, he's going, and guess what? He's going back to the Minnesota Vikings this time. Houston clearly doesn't need him. Joe Mixon is back. Dameon Pierce is back, so Akers now goes to Minnesota. Not sure what that says about the health of their running back situation, but I guess we will see if Aaron Jones is able to play this week. The Lions have extended defensive tackle Aleem McNeil 4 years, $97 million. He was drafted back in 2001. Also left tackle for the New York Giants and the main protector of Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas, is out with a Liz Frank injury. No word on how long he'll be out. He signed a 5-year, $117 million contract this offseason. All right, if you watch the Oregon game against Ohio State and you saw what Oregon pulled at the end of the game, putting 12 men on the field, essentially to make sure they didn't give up a big play and also, wind down the clock, looks like that's not going to happen anymore as the NCAA is trying to figure out a way that doesn't become commonplace in college football. It's basically a loophole in the rules. And the secretary rules editor, Steve Shaw, the NCAA, says they're going to have to discourage that. And it looks like that the officials would return the game clock to its original time if some team put 12 men on the field just to make the clock go by and them not give up a touchdown. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter, good news for him, and the Colorado Buffaloes, he could play this week against Arizona. Coach Prime Deion Sanders said coming into the week. And also USC's Eric Gentry, he's going to redshirt after having a bunch of concussions. Unfortunately for him, he'll be able to play another season at USC. Also in college football, we got one of the bigger upsets of the season last night, in a very small game, by the way. 2 double overtime game, insane finish. New Mexico State, I believe this was their second win of the season. They win outright against Louisiana Tech as 12.5-point underdogs last night. Not a lot of people saw that game, I'm sure, but definitely was a wild finish. Sam Houston, 2.5 home favorites tonight against Western Kentucky and Florida International University. They're on the road taking on UTEP tonight, where the total is 47.5. Philadelphia Phillies were ousted early this year in the playoffs. It doesn't seem to matter for Dave Dombrowski, president of baseball operations, making the announcement Rob Thompson is back with the Phillies next season and also back in 2026. They've extended him. 76 forward Paul George did not appear to suffer any long-term damage to a hyperextended knee that he suffered in a preseason game. They open up their season next week. And also Game 3 of the WNBA Finals tonight in Minnesota. The New York Liberty, 3.5 road favorites against Minnesota this evening. Meanwhile, coming up tomorrow night in the NFL, Denver Broncos and New Orleans Saints. We'll get a preview of that game with Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News. So stay with us here on the grid. He's coming up next. Also, Matthew Waters joins us a little bit later on LegalSportsReport.com. Always a great website with giving you plenty of information on sports betting and also the updates there. He'll join us as well in about 20 minutes from now. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Nish. We'll be right back.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just, understand what they mean. Because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row, and now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News. We're going to preview all the big games coming up this weekend. I don't know that I would categorize tomorrow night's game as being one of those big ones, Mike. But hey, it's NFL football. It's Thursday night, and that's all people care about.
That's a fact. We watch because they put it on.
Yeah, and we will tomorrow night. Now I don't understand this line at all here. I guess I got a late start to looking at the lines this week. I'm like, so what happens is, like, basically I have the line in front of me, And then when I'm like, wait a second, this looks off, I go to my phone just to be sure. But this is right. Denver, 2.5-point favorites at New Orleans. So I thought personally, Mike, looking at this game, that the Broncos went on the road. They won 2 games in a row. I thought they were going to play better against the Chargers. They did not. But somehow they're 2.5-point favorites at the Saints, who I thought in watching the game last week, this is why I'm like shaking my head a little bit, I thought the Saints played really well offensively in the first half. Now, Mike, if you're going to tell me that their defense is just the worst in the NFL and that's why they're 2.5-point dogs, then I will say okay. But the total's only 36.5, so help me make sense of this one.
Yeah, that's the part that really threw me, because we're talking about a team in the Saints that just gave up 51. I think Tampa Bay is a really good football team, but 51 points is a ton in the NFL. So I think that has a lot to do with why the line is where it is, the fact that they just gave up 51. But it is surprising to see the total so low, with that being the issue. What they're saying is neither of these teams can score. And even if the defense is bad on the one side, Denver's still going to struggle. And honestly, that's been proven out as well over the course of the year. They've not been able to produce points. They have been able to squeeze out a few wins, but usually with low production. I suspect that's what's going to happen here too, even though it's a road game. I never bought the Saints preseason hype, but still kind of look at them as even being disappointing. I know that's kind of, but so many people thought they were going to be effective this year, and I know Derek Carr's not there now, but Carr, they were 2-3 with Carr and not playing that well at all.
Yeah, I'm curious what Sean Payton's going to do in the offseason, because, again, Carr's done okay. He's been fine. They have the weapons around him. Shaheed has been a nice add for them the last couple of years. Olave on the other side. The running back seems okay. They have been blocking for him. They start off hot. They fall apart. And Payton, got a huge contract to go coach New Orleans. I mean, I don't know that basically if he has his own guy or not, if he's claiming he does with Carr, but this is one of those teams I would guess in the draft that's going to end up, using that on a quarterback in the first or second round. But let's move on from this game. We're wasting people's time. Lions and Vikings, total of 49.5 in this game. Detroit played fantastic last week. Minnesota's been one of the best teams in the NFL thus far. They're 2.5-point favorites this week. This has potential, I think, to be a fun game on Sunday.
This is a great early season matchup. Divisional opponents, both terrific football teams. The Lions have remembered that they're the Lions, and that's the positive sign for Detroit fans. They played exceedingly well over the weekend, and I kind of think that at some point Sam Darnold's going to remember he's Sam Darnold. I have to look at it that way. I respect his grind, the fact that he's made himself back into an NFL quarterback. I thought he was going to be terrific in NFL. Maybe he's remembered he's that Sam Darnold, the SC Sam Darnold. We'll see. For now, I believe in the Lions here. I like the fact that the number's not huge. That they have that it says that when they're going on the road, that Vegas believes them in them as. So it's not it's not that far a stretch to see them winning outright, even beyond beating the number.
All right. And by the way, right now, current odds have the Lions and Vikings even over on the FanDuel Sportsbook at plus 140, followed by the Packers at plus 550, who are very much in it, by the way. And, by the way, Bears playing good football, too. In fact, in terms of point differential, the Vikings are at plus 61, the Lions plus 60, Bears plus 47. Packers had one bad game, and so that brought them down. They're only plus 41. But, by the way, plus 41 is good, too. I mean, the entire division has a great point differential, which usually means this is a good team in the NFL. All right, marquee matchup between the Chiefs and 49ers. This will probably be, in terms of regular season games, the highest rated afternoon game of the year. And of course, this is because of the Super Bowl, rematch preview, etc. 49ers at home, only laying 1.5, total of 46.5. So, Mike, here's the question. Is this game going to be 23-20 with 2 minutes to go, and the Chiefs have the ball, and Mahomes goes down the field and throws a pass? It's incomplete, but pass interference, and then they score a touchdown and win. I mean, did I just give you the outcome of how this is going to go?
Hey, what's scary to me about the Chiefs is that they really haven't played that well, and they're still undefeated. Even Mahomes has 6 picks and 6 TDs. His receiver room has disintegrated. Travis Kelce is just now trying to get himself back into being Travis Kelce, and yet still undefeated. And they played a reasonably strong schedule. And that's what makes me a little – I would say just stay away from this game and enjoy it for the best brand name game that we've seen to date in the NFL, the 2 Super Bowl teams from a year ago. But if I'm going to go on one side or the other, I think I'm going on the Chiefs to cover. It's not a huge number, so they don't. On a road game, you'd like to get a few more points, but it is. How much do you expect when you got Patrick Mahomes on your side?
Yeah, and Andy Reid, by the way, fantastic off the bye going into this week. San Francisco, by the way, there are some reports that Christian McCaffrey could return in November, which is not that far away, so maybe there's a chance of that happening as well. All right, Mike, well, enjoy the games this week, and we'll catch up again next week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, Michael DeCourcy with us, courtesy of Sporting News. All right, coming up next here on the show, there's a lot of big games in college football. I mean, yesterday we previewed the biggest one, most likely, I would say, between Texas and Georgia. But how about the game that really Alabama, when you think about it, it's crazy to think this time of the season, they need to win this game. They have not looked good, and they already have a loss to Vanderbilt. Can they beat Tennessee in a series that the Tide have dominated? We'll discuss that next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just, understand what they mean. Because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row. Now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. You ready to preview one of the big games in college football? Again, should be a huge weekend of that. We'll talk about Tennessee and Alabama now. It's the SportsGrid Sound Off. Okay, so here we go. We're in mid-October. College football season almost about halfway over. Kind of crazy to think. Feels like we just started, but here we are. And so there's a lot of big games, as always, this time of the year. One of the bigger ones in the SEC happens to be this matchup between Alabama and Tennessee in a way that is domination. Let's talk about this. The Crimson Tide have won 19 of the past 20 matchups between these two teams. But the Volunteers may be better than the Crimson Tide this season. Let's get a full preview of this game with our Saturday morning host, Joe Lisi.
The third Saturday of October can only mean one thing. Alabama and Tennessee squaring off in Neyland Stadium. Going to be a dynamic atmosphere. Alabama opens up as a 3-point road favorite. You talk about the series perspective. Alabama's won 16 of the last 17 meetings, including last year's game, 34-20 as an 8.5-point home favorite. The last time these teams played in Knoxville, it was an epic instant classic with Tennessee striking the upset 52-49. Both teams are coming off very close home wins. Alabama and Jalen Milroe prevailed 27-25. Milroe did hit a big touchdown pass with about 2 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter to allow Alabama to win that matchup over South Carolina 27-25. On the flip side, Tennessee needed overtime as a 14.5-point home favorite over Florida. They prevailed as well, 23-17. Going to be a great game. Early on, I leaned to Jalen Milroe and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. The thing with the Crimson Tide is with the loss to Vanderbilt and also struggling to win some games this season, there are some that say that if Tennessee ends up pulling off this upset, it would knock Alabama potentially out of the college football playoff, which is kind of crazy. But let's get back to the Tennessee side of things. Neyland Stadium will, of course, be rocking on Saturday, and Josh Heupel, head coach of the Volunteers, says this is what they're all in for.
Another huge contest here for us. Rivalry game, and college football is as good as it gets here with these two teams playing. So looking forward to seeing our fans on Saturday, and need a great week of practice preparation. Really good football team that we're playing, talented, as everybody knows. Ability to make explosive plays on the offensive side of the football starts with their quarterback, him being a part of the run game, and then playmakers out on the outside and defensively. Personnel-wise, they look like they always do. Big and strong up front, and second level can run, and third level's extremely athletic. So huge test for us. We got to continue to get better and get ready to go play really good football.
The Texas-Georgia game is a Saturday night affair. The Alabama-Tennessee game is a 3:30 Eastern game. Total 56.5, by the way, in this one. So can the Alabama Crimson Tide defense shut down the Tennessee Volunteers? Kalen DeBoer has his hands full going into this matchup.
And bringing a good mindset, putting the work into the workouts, wanting to, continue to always learn and get better from the things that happen on a Saturday, and a lot of highlights. Obviously, a lot of things that we always got to continue to clean up, and it's in all phases of the game. But moving to Tennessee, we know we're really looking forward to exciting. Obviously, this game is a big deal to to fans and obviously to us, and we understand that's the case for them as well. So looking forward to a really high level, heightened week with preparation and a big game on Saturday. And I've been told it's a big deal, and I know it's a big deal. You see it from afar, and it's these are the games much like we've had already won a couple here. And just they're the big ones that are on the schedule. As a coach, they're all big, right, in different ways, and you take one at a time. But certainly understand the significance of the rivalry, and guys are going to be very motivated to go out and do their best and prepare well and be great on Saturday.
Another big game also in the SEC coming up Saturday night. LSU takes on Arkansas after their big win against Mississippi. All right, Matthew Waters is up next from Legal Sports Report, so stay with us here on the Grid. We'll have the very latest from him. Don't go away.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just understand what they mean, because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row. Now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in Matthew Waters from Legal Sports Report. He's got the very latest on ESPN Bet, joining forces, of course, in the sports betting landscape in New York. How did they perform? We'll get to that and a whole lot more. Matt, thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Great to catch up with you.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to be here.
All right. Well, for those people who are unfamiliar with the way that retail sports betting works, basically you have to be there in person. And I know a lot of people, Matt, would ask the question. It's probably like a rudimentary question, but maybe people are watching us for the first time. They're unfamiliar with how it works. Essentially, what they do, these companies, they geo-tag you, meaning that you have to be in the vicinity of where you can bet on sports. Otherwise, your phone notices that you're not there, and then you can't. And there's a new state here that is opening up a new geo-comply system. Which one is it, and how will it operate?
Yeah, you're right, Craig. That in a nutshell, that's how it works. There are a couple of places where I always use Mississippi as an example. Mississippi does not allow online sports betting throughout the state, but if you happen to be on the casino premises and the casino sportsbook offers an app where you can bet, then you can bet anywhere on your app from within that casino premises. It expands a little bit when we start to talk about Indian gaming, and the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is getting ready to launch Class 2 on-premises mobile gaming. Now, that can sound a little bit confusing. Class 2 gaming is basically slot machines and table games that don't include balls and dice, essentially, Craig. When you start to talk about Class 3 gaming, that's when you get to the Vegas-style gaming. And the Choctaw said that they are going to launch Class 2 mobile gaming, and they are going to, have it geo-locked to their both casino and their tribal lands. Now, look, Craig, I think this can maybe be seen more as a beta launch to see how things are going to work. Because if you remember, in April, the Choctaw Nation signed a sports betting deal with Kambi, one of the big sports betting tech providers out there. And it was for an exclusive nationwide sports betting partnership. Obviously, that's been on ice a little bit for about half a year now, but certainly things are going on behind the scenes. And I think we can look to this Class 2 mobile launch for the Choctaw as the wheels starting to move a little bit. We don't know if they're going to try to offer online gaming in other states that have it legalized. Right now, we just know that it's going to be for sports betting. And so, they're probably doing a lot of guessing and checking to get this live. They want to check different systems and everything, but really positive sign here, I think, for this Choctaw partnership moving forward.
Okay, very good update there. Now, Here's a number that shouldn't surprise a lot of people, but I think in the future, Matt, if ESPN Bet is going to open up in markets and get less than 2% of the total handle in a state like New York, that's going to come off a little bit stunning. People may say, well, why is it stunning? Well, it's New York and it's ESPN branded. Now, should ESPN be concerned with this number, or are they? I know what they're going to say, Matt. They're going to say, oh, it's the first month. We have higher expectations. And by the way, what kind of market share would they find acceptable in a state like New York? Is it 10%? Is it 15? I mean, it ain't going to be 50. Is it 20? Is it 7? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's an opinion from either of us.
Yeah, you know what, Craig? That's kind of hard to put a target on because you remember New York and it's 50% tax on sports betting. So maybe ESPN Bet doesn't really want to be that popular in New York. The other side of that, of course, is that these sports books are starting to build out their parlays and all of those kind of programs that help build up your hold from sports betting. So it could go either way there, but their first week, they definitely want more than the 1.8% they got from the first week. It was about 510 million bet in New York for ESPN Bet's first week, and they took about 9 million of those of handle. Now, what's interesting, Craig, is BetRivers is right around that 1.8% mark as well. And we know that BetRivers is happy with that. BetRivers is iGaming led. New York does not have iGaming. So BetRivers is fine with being at that 1.8%. But ESPN Bet, even though BetRivers has a casino in New York and Schenectady, it's ESPN. They say that they get 10 million viewers from ESPN or visitors to the website monthly. So they're definitely going to want to see more than this. And it's interesting, Craig, because they did say for the 4 days that they had in the third quarter that they could speak about in an investor update, they said that it was strong to date, the New York customer compared to customers from other states. Average daily handle was up almost 300%. And what they deposited was double the average. So they're seeing good metrics from the New York customers. They just want to see more of it at this point. And remember, we talked about ESPN Bet. Penn Entertainment said that they are lowering the expected losses they will see from or that they will report for the third quarter. They were able to cut in some areas. Parlays improving in some areas certainly help with that as well. And they say that they're over-indexing with the mass market. And that's exactly what you kind of want to do in New York, right? You want to over-index with those casual players. You definitely want to have people betting those parlays. But yeah, Craig, it's a state launch for them. It's a well-established state for DraftKings and FanDuel. FanDuel has 39%. DraftKings has 36% of the market. And the high taxes mean that you don't want to go in there and, promo your butt off to everybody and basically rent market share if they're just going to go back to DraftKings and FanDuel anyway. So we're keeping an eye on this. 1 week doesn't tell the whole story, but it does give us some insight that they're seeing what they like so far is what they're seeing.
Okay, fair assessment, and we'll keep an eye on ESPN Bet everywhere around the country too. We're also keeping an eye on Hard Rock, but really more of the story here is a company that I know that you've covered quite a bit called Kambi, getting involved in a partnership with all of the Hard Rock sports betting outlets to handle all of their technology in terms of odds. And so Kambi just seems to be doing this well. It seems like anytime there's any sort of sports betting expansion, they're finding their footprint somewhere.
Kambi does what they do very well, Craig. And this is kind of new to what they do because they technically offer you the one-stop shop, right? Where you can come in and just say, okay, I want your tech for my sports book, and that's it. That's not the deal that's happening with Hard Rock. They're simply taking the odds feed from Kambi and working it into their own system. And so this is kind of a big deal for both of them. On the Hard Rock side, I like to look at it as this. We know that they are exclusive in Florida, and you just have to wonder about how exposed they are to some of these Florida teams and Florida games when it comes to national handle, because we know that Florida is just hugely their business, aside from a couple of other states that, dribs and drabs of business. Florida is the main one. And so you're getting more markets. You're getting pre-match markets. You're getting live markets. You can add more sports, come and go. You can kind of change the product up. And so Hard Rock is going to be able to, hopefully, they hope, they're going to get more parlays going. We just talked about this. They're going to add legs to the average parlay. And remember, Hard Rock Bet also offers the flex parlay, where if you lose a leg or two, you can still come back and win some money. So this should be a huge switch for their parlays and their betting mix. For Canby, this is a great partner that you want to get in bed with. You want to be with the only operator in Florida. So it's a win-win for both.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Great stuff, Matt. As always, thanks for coming on NewsWire, and we'll catch up again later in the week.
Thanks, sir. Take care. All
right. Matthew Waters from Legal Sports Report. Coming up next, Simon Applebaum with the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. The numbers are in from last week in college football, and some staggering numbers for people watching some of these big games. We'll tell you all about it next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just, understand what they mean. Because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row. Now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. So much discussion in the offseason about this realignment of college football and 12-team playoffs and these very unusual matchups in college football as well. Simon, have they cashed in on this or what? I mean, they do not need any other football leagues, XFL, UFL. They've got it right here in college football. Simon, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, to see some of these numbers of the people that are watching. Now, again, 1 million or 2 million people, yes, the big football games are going to be watched. But 5 times that amount for some of these big games? I mean, that is just astronomical.
Absolutely, Craig, and great to be with you. And you look at what NBC did last Saturday with one of the big games of that weekend, Ohio State and Oregon, 10.4, 10.5 million viewers. That is certainly the best that Big Ten Saturday Night has done on NBC in the last year and a half. I think you're absolutely right. I think realignment has been huge, particularly with the SEC. Another thing is how close the games have been. It's like every single week now we are getting these very, very close games, whether it's Ohio State, Oregon, whether it's Alabama, South Carolina, whether it's Florida, Tennessee. You have these incredible matchups that are popping up where the games aren't decided until the last minute. And it's really showing, especially with ABC's coverage of the SEC. That has been a big, big boom. You're seeing that they are getting, and the fact that ABC, by the way, is running all their college football or SEC games, early afternoon, late afternoon, prime time, and they're all doing well. They're averaging right now between 4 million and 6 million or more viewers. ESPN is getting about 1 million to 3-4 million, depending on the telecast. They're also focused on SEC games, Big 12 games, ACC games. Another big surprise has been the CW with their ACC games, whether it's in the afternoon or in prime time on Saturday, which, by the way, now is a bookend between the NASCAR Xfinity races. They're averaging now between 400,000 and 600,000 viewers a week, which is certainly up from what they did in their first ACC round of last fall. The big loser has been the Mountain West Conference and their games on True TV. They are barely getting 100,000 viewers or less a game. I'm talking about True TV, part of the Warner Bros. Discovery family, TBS, TNT, and so forth. They are getting, with the Mountain West, even with Boise State being a major top 25 team this year, they are getting less than 100,000 viewers a game. They are not publicizing them very well. It's part of the problem. But going back to the SEC and the realignment, Craig, these games have been very, very close. They're very well covered. I think Chris Fowler, Joe Tessitore, and Sean McDonough, who are all doing the SEC games on ABC, doing a great job. You're also seeing new teams come up like Bob Shoes and Louis Riddick on ESPN. Also, Roy Philippot and Sam Acho become, I think, one of the stars this year in their first matchup on ESPN games. It's really been amazing. Plus, you've got these incredible storylines like Indiana, Big Ten powerhouse for the first time in years, 6-0. Army and Navy becoming in the top 25 together for the first time in decades. It may be that the Army-Navy game might determine who is going to be in that top 20 in the college football playoff. So you have all these great storylines, you have the realignment, and I think the football public is just going gaga over these matchups.
Yeah, that would be something if either Army or Navy played in a game to potentially get in the playoff. I mean, it seems a little far-fetched now, but in the end, you never know. And Simon, you're right. Saturday night, you had every one of those games coming down to the last play of the game, which was just so unusual. And the one thing that I want to say as we close this out is I don't know what the negotiations look like, Simon, and I don't know how this ended up happening, but I think we even knew it at the time. How CBS did not retain the SEC is still beyond me. Like, I mean, whatever money that they had to pay for that, I just don't understand how they didn't get that done.
I don't either, Craig, because they have the SEC for years. Right now, with the Big 10, Big 12 games, they're not doing very well. Neither is Fox also. And that's very, very surprising because Fox, for example, has had the Big 10 now for a couple of years. And by the way, in the battle of the pregame shows, college football game day is still number one over Fox's Big Noon Kickoff.
Yeah, not surprised there, too. All right, so the NFL doing some housekeeping notes in terms of locations for the Super Bowl. They announced Atlanta's getting the next one. They also made an announcement about the upcoming broadcast in New Orleans, adding some additional languages. Let's talk about that.
Well, in the case of Spanish language television, Fox Deportes, which has been really under the radar screen when it comes to Spanish language television networks devoted to sports compared to ESPN, Telemundo, and TuneIn on Televisa Univision, Fox Deportes 9 years ago did the first Super Bowl in Spanish. Next year, when the Super Bowl is going to be in Vegas in February, it's going to be a very unique situation. Fox Deportes, which has done the Super Bowl 5 times, they're going to do number 6 with Telemundo. So you're going to see 2 telecasts. They're simulcasting, but they're going to have their separate teams, their separate announcing teams, separate production teams. I think this is huge for Fox Deportes. A lot of people don't know that Fox Deportes does do some of the NFL playoff games that Fox carries. They also do 4 regular season games. They're going to be doing the Dallas Cowboys-New York Giants game this Thanksgiving as part of the Thanksgiving Day triple header. And believe it or not, even though there's been a lot of advancement with Spanish language telecasts, you know, ESPN Deportes doing Monday Night Football for years. Lately we've had Universo and Telemundo doing Sunday Night Football. I believe there is a Spanish language Amazon Prime Video cast for Thursday night. Sunday afternoon games still don't have a weekly Spanish language presence, despite the fact Univision did very well with CBS covering the Super Bowl this past year, and that Fox does those 4 regular season games. I think if Fox Deportes does very well, Fox Deportes should tell Fox, hey, we want a weekly Spanish language package for the Sunday afternoon games. And I got to think that at some point CBS has got to do the same thing as well.
Let's cover the idea that ex-athletes want to get involved in sports broadcasting, not being on the air, but being the production companies. It seems like we're getting a new one of these every week, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. And the latest one earlier this week was those former New England teammates, Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski. Now they have formed their own production company, and they are starting with YouTube, a new weekly series where they're going to call dudes in the NFL, current and present and past, who they're at in terms of football history. And that's not all. They'll be working on some projects for TV, for film, and otherwise, all with a sports bent. And we're seeing this, by the way, more and more, not just with pro football athletes, but with athletes overall. They're forming their own production companies. They see what Netflix is doing. They see what Prime Video is doing. They see Max and so forth. And it's going to be big. One other thing, former NFL linebacker Sean Merriman, for the last few months, has his own sports network called Lights Out Sports, and it's doing pretty well.
Thanks, Simon.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
You can't sometimes look at the point spreads and just, understand what they mean. Because going into the game, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, Denver's playing better football. They won a couple in a row. Now they're going back home.
The Broncos have to turn around and play on a short week. Sean Payton is returning to New Orleans. The Saints just gave up almost 600 yards of offense to the Buccaneers. So it's going to be interesting kind of gut check.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. There's an NBA player set to make his debut, reintroduce himself, as they say, after a couple of years. Also a fight on the ice in the NHL, but it wasn't with two different teams. It was the same team. And also the latest on the Tampa Bay Rays. All that and more. It's time now for some last licks. All right, in the height of this debate TV show stuff, I'm going to go back about, I'm going to guess 7-8 years ago. People forget just how popular the Ball brothers were and their dad, LeVar Ball. Like, what happened to LeVar Ball? Like, you never see that guy, but yet at the peak of these, debate shows on TV, it was LeVar Ball going on, screaming and yelling and talking about his sons. And then remember how popular Lonzo Ball was. LaMelo Ball, obviously good player too. But remember, the popularity of Lonzo Ball is going to be the next great thing in the NBA. Is going to be amazing, really high draft pick, etc. Well, that didn't really work out that way. But there is good news. There is good news. Lonzo Ball, who has not played, folks, this is a long time, not one, but in 2 years in the NBA, is set to come back and play for the Chicago Bulls. So congratulations to him. Essentially, this is one of those really good stories in the end, but it did remind me, I'll be honest, about the fact that when he was getting ready to come to the NBA, and then LaMelo too, just how his dad was like so much more popular than all of them. Remember, I think LeVar Ball said, did he say he could beat like Kobe Bryant one-on-one or something like that? I mean, we're going far back. I think that is the case. But to me, that was the peak of those debate shows, having just that outlandish stuff. What happened to him? I don't know. But Lonzo is 26 years old. The last game that he played, January 14th, 2022, and he was the number 2 overall pick back in 2017. Okay, so my math is correct. That was about 7 years ago, and his dad was talking on TV like crazy for a long time, 8 years ago. All right, a fight in the NHL, 2 teammates on the Buffalo Sabres. This doesn't happen that often where you see 2 players on the same NHL team fight. I wouldn't say it's like an unwritten rule. It just generally doesn't happen because you know that they're going to fight other teams. But I guess in practice, what happened is 2 players ended up fighting on Buffalo. One named Peyton Krebs, the other named Rasmus Dahlin. They got in this huge fight at their own practice, and there was some controversy as to whether or not these 2 players got along or whatever, but it looks like it was all in good fun. This is a good way to say I'm sorry and to make up. So Peyton Krebs apparently has this Instagram account that I'm familiar with because I saw the story myself. Went on there and posted this, hugging my best friend when we score. And that's the player that he got in the fight with, named Rasmus Dahlin. Now, again, I'm not the biggest hockey guy in the world. I'm not all that familiar with this stuff. But I thought it was a cool story. And needless to say, they hugged it out. All right, well, we told you earlier in the show that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be needing a new destination this upcoming season. March 27th, they're not going to be able to play at Tropicana Field. But the good news is that the Stingrays that were there, and even through Hurricane Milton, they have relocated them, and they've been removed. So they've been saved, and they're okay. Now, the stadium itself is an absolute wreck. I'm sure you've seen the drone shots of this, but the Stingrays themselves are okay. They're going to go to a local zoo and then essentially hopefully brought back there one day. But what I can tell you is that this is a really big story for Major League Baseball to have a stadium that is going to have regular season games where you can only fit about 8,000 fans there. Now, I know cynical people are going to say only 7,000 people go see Rays games anyway, but folks, in June and July in Florida, it is hot. You have to have a roof. There's going to be a lot of rain delays too. I don't know how they sort this thing out, but it's going to have to be somewhere in the Tampa Bay area. That'd be my guess. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Thanks to Simon Applebaum. The podcast tomorrow will be televised. Also, thank you to Matthew Waters from Legal Sports Report and Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News. Also, thanks to Joe Lisi for contributing to the show again today. Also, our director, Luke, our producer, Frank, and our schedule coming up is as follows. Early Line coming up next, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast, Game Time Decisions, and then during tonight's game between the Mets and Dodgers, follow along through our programming, in-game live game day. Also, some college football as well as some preseason NBA basketball. And Gabe wraps it all up for you tonight. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you back here for our next edition of NewsWire as we preview Thursday Night Football between the Broncos and Saints. That game coming up tomorrow night, and some big games in college football as well. Bill Bender will join us later in the week. I hope you have a great rest of your day and night. See you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, next edition of NewsWire.